Welcome to TV Africa News. Thank you so much for joining us and always being part of us. This is Africa Today. My name is Nahaba Kajura, but first are the headlines. Uganda abstains as countries vote to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine at UN. Completion of Busoga-Mpigi Expressway affected by COVID-19. 48 districts at high risk of landslides due to heavy rains. In our sports today, Uganda Netball Federation acquires key sponsor Prague 2022 Commonwealth Games. Once again, thank you so much for being part of us. We start with one of our top stories. Now, Uganda was among the few countries that abstained as the United Nations voted for a resolution deploring Russia's invasion of Ukraine and a call for the immediate withdrawal of its forces on Wednesday. More details in this report.
In an emergency session of the UN's General Assembly, 141 of the 193 member states voted for the resolution to condemn Russia. 35 abstained and 5 voted against the resolution. The UN resolution said that the UN deplores in the strongest terms the aggression by the Russian Federation against Ukraine and called on the Russian Federation to immediately cease its use of force against Ukraine and immediately, completely and unconditionally withdraw all of its military forces. The UN Assembly's resolution therefore urged the immediate peaceful resolution of the conflict and reaffirmed the Assembly's commitment to the sovereignty, independence, unity and territorial integrity of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. However, the resolution was not supported by Belarus, North Korea, Eritrea, Russia and Syria. The UN Director at the International Crisis Group, Richard Gowan, said whereas the resolution is not legally binding, it is an expression of the views of the UN membership aimed at increasing pressure on Russia and its ally Belarus. During the vote, Uganda was among the 35 countries, including Africans, that abstained from the vote. Among others who abstained were Pakistan, Sri Lanka, China, Cuba, Nicaragua, Vietnam and South Africa. Commenting about the development, Adonia Ayebare, Uganda's permanent representative to the United Nations, confirmed the abstinence that he said was for a reason.
Away from that, the impact of COVID-19 has affected the timely completion of Busoga-Mpigi Expressway that was slated for May 2022.
While inspecting the road construction progress of Uganda's second toll-free road after Entebbe Expressway, the Minister for Works and Transport, General Katumba Wamala, revealed the pandemic led to delay in procuring necessary equipment to complete the road in time. Katumba also confirmed that the realignment of the road design away from the original plan also impacted the road construction progress. At the moment, road construction progress stands at 15%, with Minister anticipating that once all stakeholders play their part, it is said to be completed by 2025. Katumba said that they have given themselves tasks and timeframes for each one, so that by end of April, they should have addressed most of the issues concerning this project to enable the contractor move fast. He said that the contractor's employment levels are also encouraging, with about 602 workers, of whom 597 are Ugandans and only 65 are foreigners. Busoga-Mpigi Expressway, which is expected to cover a distance of 23.7 kilometers from Busega to Mpanga Forest in Mpigi, shall contain 4 toll plazas, 13 bridges, several interchanges as well as access roads expected to further spur economic development of the country. The road project is co-funded with support from the African Development.
Away from that, moving on in our top stories, government has said over 48 districts are at high risk of waterlogging, windstorms and landslides due to heavy rains that will be experienced during March, April and May. We have the story. According to Uganda National Meteorological Authority, the first major rain season of March, April, May is shaping up in the southern sector, southwestern, western and Lake Victoria basin of the country. The Minister of State for Relief, Disaster Preparedness and Refugees, Esther Anyakun, said many gardens and houses are likely to be affected by waterlogging and windstorms. She noted that this will create the need for emergency relief of food and non-food items to support the high-risk exposed communities. Priority 1 in this respect, according to the minister, will be to support families in safer areas to provide refuge for the relatives and neighbors in the high-risk zones, mobilize short to medium-term support from government and development partners. The high-risk areas include the districts in Lango, Taso, Karamoja, Bugisu, Sebei, Bukedi, Busoga, Chigezi, and parts of Ankoli and Bunyoro sub-regions, as the current prediction is of average to enhanced rainfall with high probability in the eastern and northeastern regions. The minister guided that the district local governments should mobilize communities to embrace the culture and practice of community-based disaster risk management, such as community involvement in desilting. Well, thank you so much, reporter. We take a quick break. We shall come back with the international news. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In the international news today, many Tripoli inhabitants were disheartened on Wednesday following the confirmation of a parallel government by the Eastern-based parliament. A new day started in Libya with yet a new political challenge. Take a look at the story.
On Tuesday, the House of Representatives confirmed the cabinet submitted by Prime Minister Fathi Bashagha. However, another government led by Prime Minister Abdulhamid Deiba still claims legitimacy. On the streets of Tripoli on Wednesday, many Libyans regretted this political deadlock. Omran Abzaid Absaham, a freelance business worker, feared having two parallel governments would plunge the country into more chaos, stating that there were two governments for more than 6 years, citing possible separation and division again. Deiba, the head of Libya's National Unity Government, was appointed through a UN-led process. He was tasked with shepherding the country until elections. Eventually, the presidential election scheduled on December 2021 never took place. This prompted efforts to replace him. The situation is reminiscent of the political crisis Libya experienced for years before a unity government was sworn in 2021. Starting from 2014, two competing governments vied for power.
Moving on in our international news, Burkina Faso strongman Paul Henri Damiba was ceremonially sworn in as president on Wednesday following the adoption of a charter to restore elected government in 2025.
Damiba, a 41-year-old lieutenant colonel, seized power on January 24th, toppling elected President Roch Marc Christian Kabore. He was sworn in as president and head of the armed forces by the top constitutional body on February 16th. Brief ceremonies to officialize his position were held on Wednesday before representatives of the army, political parties and trade unions and the diplomatic corps. On Tuesday, Damiba signed a so-called transition charter that declared elections would be held 36 months after his inauguration. The period was longer than the 30 months that had been proposed by a commission set up by the junta. The charter stipulates that the president is not eligible for the presidential, legislative and municipal elections, which will be organized to put an end to the transition. A 71-member legislature and 25-member government, led by a civilian prime minister, will set up to ensure the transition. Their members will also be barred from contesting the post-transition ballot.
Well, thank you so much, reporter. Moving on in the international news, on Wednesday, the High Court of Pietermaritzburg ordered the ceremony could take place and Prince Misuzulu will succeed his late father, Goodwill Zwelithini, as king of the Zulu nation in South Africa. Take a look at the story. Prince Misuzulu may soon be enthroned king of the Zulu nation in South Africa. On Wednesday, the High Court of Pietermaritzburg ordered the ceremony could go ahead. The ruling came after two applications were brought before the court. In the first one, two daughters of the late king wanted the coronation ceremony postponed. However, since no royal family member disputed the throne to Prince Misuzulu, High Court Judge Isaac Madondo rejected the princess's interdict application. The second application was filed by Queen Sibongile Dlamini. The king's first wife contested the will of her late husband, claiming the signature was forged. She also claimed half of the king's estate, but the court dismissed her bid. After the death of King Zwelithini in March 2021, a legal tussle over his succession began. In his will, he appointed his third wife, Shiyiwe Dlamini, regent, but she died a month later. Her 47-year-old son, Misuzulu, was set to become king since she had designated him. The High Court is expected to hand down a judgment on the validity of King Goodwill Zwelithini's will. Moving on, the Congolese opposition is boycotting a dialogue organized by the government ahead of local and legislative elections in the Central African country. A coalition of parties dismissed the meeting, which starts on Thursday in Owando in the country's north, as a stunt meant to divert attention from the various crises plaguing the country. Take a look at that story. Jean Itadi, president of the African Congress for Progress, said that they must not think about what Owando should be between, but rather they need a real dialogue that brings together all the sons and daughters of the Congo. Last March, President Denis Nguesso and his Congo Labour Party controversially won re-election. He's been in power for a total of 38 years. The government has defended the dialogue as necessary to achieve consensus ahead of the legislative vote to be held in 5 months. The ruling party is keen to maintain an overwhelming majority, but the opposition has demanded a structured dialogue with power-sharing constitutional reforms and the release of political prisoners, key among the General Jean-Marie, a former commander who challenged Sassou for the presidency in 2016. He was charged with treason and convicted. Well, thank you so much, your reporter. Africa Today takes a quick break. We shall come back with business, health, and sports. Welcome back for the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In the business news today, oil prices continue to rise on Wednesday, reaching levels not seen for nearly a decade. Now, US WTI rose to as high as $111.50, the highest since 2013, while North Sea Brent crude hit $113.2, the highest since 2014. Now, both fell back a little during the session, but prices were still up to 5%. We have the report.
Russia is the world's second largest exporter of crude oil and accounts for more than 40% of the EU's annual natural gas imports. Following Ukraine's invasion by Russian forces, the European Union and the US have imposed tough sanctions on Moscow, which could lead to the disruption of supplies. Natural gas and aluminium also hit all-time highs, propelled by the conflict in Ukraine, prompting fears of disruption to energy and commodities supplies. The Russia-Ukraine conflict occurs at a time when prices of energy and commodities were increasing following the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions in many countries. In 2021, Russia was the world's third largest aluminium producer after China and India, according to data from the World Bureau of Metal Statistics. Russia's main export markets are Turkey, Japan, China, the United States, and the European Union.
In our health news today, South African universities started to implement soft mandates requiring students to provide proof of vaccination to access the campus. Now, from Tuesday, unvaccinated students and staff can only access online learning. Now, student representatives have denounced the policy as incomplete and elitist. Fumelelani Mshumi, president of the Student Representative Council at the University of the Western Cape, complained that the policy is incomplete and is not taken to people, no orientation needed to introduce such an act on people's lives. The Director of Legal Services at the University of Western Cape, Shavan Rage, explained the new policy called Soft Mandate, that it means that anyone can be a student registered to study, but you cannot go into campus unless you are vaccinated. Responding to students' concerns, a representative of the University of Western Cape defended the move and claiming that it's based on science. Gasant Abada Manager Media and Communications, University of Western Cape, say that the research done at university has also contributed to their approach when it comes to the interim COVID-19 vaccination policy. It's based on science. South Africa has recorded more than 96,000 deaths, the highest death toll on the continent. In our sports news today, Uganda Netball Federation has announced a sponsorship partnership for She Cranes netball team for GoTV at Old Kampala Sports Arena on Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. We have the report. The announcement was kicked off with a friendly match that saw the ladies compete amongst themselves with a 4-0 score. All players actively participated as they showed good sportsmanship and true passion for the game. MultiChoice Uganda highlighted the significance of supporting home-grown teams like the She Cranes as they carry the country's banner everywhere they go. The She Cranes have proven their worth as the national team with the various championships attained over the years. It is without a doubt that MultiChoice sought it only right to sponsor the She Cranes ladies netball team to a tune of almost 82 million Ugandan shillings as they prepare and gear up for tournaments like the Australian Netball Championship, US Open Netball Championship, She Cranes Regional Tours, Scotland Friendly Game, Fast 5 tournament in New Zealand, and the World Cup 2023. Joan Semanda Chiza, the PR and Communications Manager, highlighted that the GoTV Uganda sponsorship was especially geared towards the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. Honorable Sarah Babirye Chityo, the President Uganda Netball Federation, welcomed MultiChoice Uganda's generous contribution, citing the importance of supporting local sports talents like the She Cranes. Ahead of the Commonwealth Games set to take place in July 2022, the She Cranes will actively prepare and compete in regional across the country in Africa. Well, thank you so much for being a loyal audience. For more we started from, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We should keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.